Welcome to the Sleepy G Show. I'm your host with your most. My name is Gomez, and today, like every day here at the show, at the Sleepy G Show, we do have a wonderful special guest. I would like to bring in my special guest, Michelle Steiner. Michelle, welcome to the show tonight.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about having this conversation.
I'm excited. I'm actually really excited, but it's kind of funny. I like to raise awareness too. I'm just not just a fun-loving show. I've had a good friend of mine, her son has autism.
Uh-huh.
I had two people battling drug addiction, major drug addictions. I had someone with cerebral
Uh-huh.
palsy.
Right.
Now, here, I had someone with domestic violence. Matter of fact, I had two of them. Now, here we are. We're going to talk to you about disabilities. Um,
Right.
Now, the funny thing is, when you went to school, people told you you couldn't go anywhere, couldn't
Right.
do anything. I was told that back in high school too by my guidance counselor that I would never
Mm-hmm.
amount to much. It's because I trusted in football too much and not my schoolwork. You know what I mean? But here I am.
Right.
I'm 44 years old. I'm rocking my own podcast, and I hate to say those words. I'm kicking ass and taking names with it. You know what I mean?
Y- Yeah.
What was your motivation now to prove people wrong?
As I knew what my dreams were.
Okay.
I knew that I wanted to go to college and I wanted to work with kids and I
Mhm.
definitely wanted to do something with writing. But I had my hesitation. And as I said, similar to you, I had a learning support teacher who told me I could not go to college because of my math. And she suggested a trade school that I could do while I was in high school. And that would have been all fine and good, but nothing there interested me. I really didn't want to work in a kitchen being a chef. I didn't want to do hair. And I know a lot of those things were mainly what they encourage girls to do.
Mm,
And I knew I didn't want to be a mechanic. And all those things would have been a lot harder for me.
right.
So I got connected with an agency called Office for Vocational Rehabilitation, and they said, okay, yeah, college seems like a good opportunity for you. There are programs that have people for individuals with disabilities and accommodations. And I was like, okay, wow, that's great. Still was a
Right.
little fearful. I had a wonderful student teacher who really encouraged me, though. She said, you can go to college, you know how to study. And hearing that, I can sometimes when I got there, that those were the words that played in my head. I also had a psychiatrist who said, you're not going to go beyond community college. And I was told I'd have limited job choices. But a lot of what kept me going was just being able to know what my dreams were. My parents also encouraged independence and advocacy from the time I was very young. And I think it was just a lot of having those dreams and the doors just being open for me, and being really wise about the choices too,
Mhm.
knowing that if I was going to pick a program, it was going to have the least amount of math and science possible, and I was going to have to use disability accommodations and supports, and luckily for me they really worked and I was able to do that.
See, for me, I had a learning disability. I really
Mm-hmm.
had my attention was, I'd be working on something. Next thing I know, I'm like, what? Like, I
Yeah.
lose focus. So, you know, at the time when I was at high school, I was told my grades weren't good enough. I was just a C student.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. Hey, listen, my SATs were actually pretty good
Good.
for a football player. You know what I mean?
Right.
But my grades didn't reflect my SAT scores. Hey, I'm not gonna lie. I tried to be a good student. Don't get me wrong, but I was more of a hands-on guy.
Right.
I wasn't offered a trade school.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, and I don't regret it. I worked, and my dream was to go play college football.
Right.
Unfortunately, I got hurt. Um,
Oh.
you know, so I went to community college, did 2 years. Unfortunately, the second year my dad passed away, didn't graduate.
Sorry to
Um,
hear that.
well, I appreciate it. Was a very long time ago, but thank you very much. I chose to work at a company that I've worked for almost 20 years, and that became my education, learning things. measuring. The funny thing is, math was never my highlight too. But for some reason, chemistry and science was good to me. So
Mm-hmm.
when I went to the paint industry and I started matching colors, I started figuring out things. And what's kind of funny, chemistry and science helped me out. Math really didn't in this. But again, math did somewhat teach me, how to add and subtract and what I needed to do. But it was hard. And when I was told, you're gonna struggle, and then you're not gonna
Mm-hmm.
amount to things. And then I look at myself now, just like I'm 44 years old, turning 45 this year.
Yeah.
And one thing I look now in my life, I'm married 10 years. I have two lovely kids. I bought my very first house. I'm on a free podcast station that I give, that I invite anybody to come on because I love to, excuse me, to hear other stories like yours and mine. And I
Mm-hmm.
love spreading the message. You know what I mean? And one thing is, I know you graduated college. You are a teacher to kids who have disabilities. Actually, the funny thing is, my wife is a teacher for uh, uh, for kids who have troubles with disabilities
Mm-hmm.
too. She is an educational teacher in New Jersey who teaches kids with disabilities, and she does a wonderful job. Granted, one kid bit her about 8 years ago, pretty bad. Almost wanted to deck the dad, but I didn't because it's not my, not my position. You know what I mean? Yeah, hurt my
Right.
wife. You hurt my soon-to-be wife. Our wedding day is coming around the corner. Kid shouldn't be doing that. But
Right. Right. Oh, of course.
now you go to college and you chose to be a teacher. What made you choose the teaching line? I guess is the key word. It's just to figure out how did you determine to become a teacher?
Actually a paraprofessional, so I'm a teacher's assistant,
Okay.
but we do have a lot of the same roles. We just can't teach new information. But I knew that I wanted to work with kids, but I knew being a certified teacher was not going to be the best choice for me because I'm not a great test taker.
Hmm.
And I just wanted to be able to go in and get a degree that didn't involve the certification because I just simply knew that I was going to be hitting a wall. And I was so lucky to find a program called Community Programming for Americans with Disabilities. In fact,
Hmm.
we got a lot of teachers who couldn't pass the praxis and they wanted to have a degree that
Right.
they could go out and use. And this shows me how I have been able to use my degree to help other people. This was the service end of working with people with disabilities in a school setting. And a lot of my inspiration that I do with working with kids in the school, having my blog and writing, and just connecting with people has come with my own experience with having a learning disability.
Mhm.
I can remember all those years being so ashamed and wanting to hide and thinking, especially when I was being bullied for having one, my life would be perfect if I didn't have a disability. And what good could ever come out of this? And what I've learned is some of those experiences have helped me to develop empathy and understanding.
Mhm.
A lot of times, I work with sixth graders this year,
Okay.
and it's like hearing a recording of myself at that age. I wish I didn't have a learning disability. I wish I didn't have an individual education plan. Nobody
Mhm.
thinks that I'm smart. And I get to go in there and to be able to understand what they're feeling because I've been there. And that has helped me. And sometimes I get to share my story. And sometimes I say I'm just not good at math, and because all the kids know, or they will soon find out I cannot help you with math.
Right.
But it's that empathy part that just wouldn't have been there if I didn't experience it.
And that's a funny thing. Like for me, um, reading reading was always the hard thing for me.
Hmm.
And test taking, yes.
Yeah.
If you told me to take a written test, I couldn't
Hmm.
pass to save my. I could study. I would study. My mom was she was a very smart one. She was the book smarts.
Hmm.
So my mom had an education. When she was working, she had me. She went back to college. She got her master's. She got her, all her stuff that she needed to become a chief financial officer for a board of education. You know what I mean? I was so proud of my mom. Where my dad, is a hands-on guy, and he was a waiter for many
Mm-hmm.
years. And the funny thing is, the only thing that I was able to understand was sports.
Right.
So when I was younger, I never played the game of football, the American football. I ended up playing football, soccer, as we call it here, all my
Mhm.
life. It wasn't until high
Right.
school where I discovered the game of football. Oh no, I discovered the game of football through my dad watching games and playing with my friends on street ball and stuff like that. But I never played anything like on a team. So when they gave me the playbook as a freshman, I'm like, what's this? Like,
Right.
all I see is squiggly lines. I'm like, okay, this guy, and then
Yeah.
what was funny is that for some reason, and I don't know about you, I had a photographic memory when it came to the plays.
Mm-hmm.
So if they said red 22, we said 1 through 5 would be going to the right, 6 to 10, 6 to 9 would go to the left. 22, the two number would be the play call. So I would like remember that. For some reason, that connected with me. So if I hear,
Mm-hmm.
S79, S79, I'm like, all right, so it's sweep left and the guard's pulling. I gotta fill in for the guard that's pulling.
Right.
So that was one thing, like it was funny. I could sit there in a football meeting
Right.
and I'll study the plays. I'll study, and that's why I became a coach too, actually. I since I hurt my knee, I couldn't go play
Mm-hmm.
college ball. I decided to coach football with my high school team that I was there. I I,
Awesome.
I would go to school during the day, work
Mm-hmm.
at Sherwin-Williams from like 12 to 3, and then go to the football field until 9 o'clock at night and do
Oh
my
my
homework
goodness.
until midnight.
Yeah.
So I would be doing that. But the one thing that I was so good at was staring at other teams and going, Coach, he's going to run this right now. Like I would go, they actually scouted, they made me a scouter and a
Right.
freshman coach so I can go scout while they played varsity. And I would scout the team. So I would literally go home Saturday afternoon after a varsity game that I would go see the opponent. I write down every single play, study all the videos, and how many times I ran it. Monday afternoon when I got there for practice, I'm like, here you go, guys. Here's the playbooks. They're like, they're like, whoa, your attention to detail. I'm like, so here's every brand, first down. This is how many times I run this play. And like for you, it's got to be the same thing. You know what I mean? Like you as teaching with the empathy of these kids. Like I taught my kids, school is always first. Well, actually,
Yes.
family first. I went to a Catholic school, so God second,
Yes. Uh-huh.
family third, friends are fourth, football's last.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
And, and I embraced that with my kids because I wanted them to know I messed up. You're not messing up. Don't learn from my mistakes.
Yeah, and that's so true. And you found a way to be able to do that, and you found a way to be able to understand how things work.
Hmm.
And it's amazing like that. I don't exactly have a photographic memory, but the thing is, I can remember for me to learn something, I have to have an emotional impact or something
Okay.
with literacy or somebody's story that I hear. And the really amazing thing is I can't remember my times tables. I can't read the face of a clock, how to do that. But if you tell me a story about somebody, and I don't even have to have met this person, if I
Hmm.
have an impact with that, I will bring that up. And my friends are like, wow, you have this incredible memory.
Yeah, same thing
But
with me. Yeah.
it has to have an impact in some way, and details that I can do that. If I can't relate to it,
Mhm.
then I'm not going to remember, and I'm not going to understand how to do things.
Right.
And sometimes it's just picking out what the right things are to memorize.
Hmm.
Because I remember I would go and read a text, and I would take a test on it, and I would get the details wrong. And
Right.
everybody said, well, you didn't read that. I'm like, well, yeah, I read it. And
It
sometimes
just
I have to also put into practice with the hands on thing. I know sometimes with working with the computer, I can remember my dad's like, "Oh, you should take a class," and people have told me take a do the CD and everything, or to learn what you need to do, or the instruction course. I learned more when I was just on the computer by myself, and I was
Yeah.
teaching myself how I needed to do that, and that's how I learned. And I was talking with a colleague of mine. She actually teaches the computer class, and I help her in the room during one of the periods. And she said one of the frustrating things is when you go to a training
Hmm.
and they say, "Here's how you do all this," and then they expect you to do it by just sitting and watching people, and that's not how a lot of people learn.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you're hearing something, you're getting that hands on, you're able to see something. All using all of those senses is what really helps us to be able to cement a lot of information.
Yeah. I mean, for me, definitely because
Mm-hmm.
hands-on, I'm a blogger too, and I like blogging. So, on my website, I literally last night I did two blogs because I was a little bit behind. First of all, I did my first
Yeah.
album review. So I had to do a review on this album,
Right.
which I liked a lot. Then on top
Nice.
of it, I love movies. So for some reason, watching movies, I became a movie connoisseur, and I could recite lines
Yep.
like it was my job. And people are like,
Mm-hmm.
how can you remember movie lines and movies, but you can't remember your math? I just said math was not very impactful for me. Like
Yep.
it did not
Exactly.
impact my life. Listen, I can figure out problems. I have a cheat sheet at work that I use to this day because again, I need help. You know what I mean? I can't go to my coworkers every day. I've been working here for 9 years. I can't go to them every single day. Hey, can you show me again? Because I'm so dumb and I forgot. Where it's like, okay, figure out a way how to remember. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And repeating. And for me, hands-on is the best thing. I've learned,
Mm-hmm.
again, podcasting. I started this 2 years ago when I tore my knee during COVID. I ripped my
Mm-hmm.
MCL and I was home early October, the first week of October, first weekend of October, I'm home with my knee up in the air and waiting for because I got hurt at work. So I'm waiting for
Mm-hmm.
insurances to tell me where to go. And my best friend at the time said, I go, listen, I'm bored. What can we do? Let's do a podcast together. And then as I got comfortable podcasting, I found my niche. And then here I am. I have my own show. It's nothing that we broke up. It was just because we had conflict of schedules.
Right. Yeah.
He's got two older kids. I have two younger kids. He's got to record earlier. I got to record later.
Right.
So, it just didn't work out. And I just said, listen, why don't we do our own things? Let's see what happens. If we both fail, we could always come back to this.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
he definitely didn't fail. And at one point I thought I failed. I'm not gonna lie, last year in the summer, I'm just like, I'm not getting the numbers. I get it's the summer. I'm recording every week. I'm putting out a show every week. I go, I got to do something different for 2024, and I did. So I started recording ahead, where I'm going to be into July,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't have to worry as much. I
Yes.
release every 2 weeks, but I blog every week, every Sunday, except I missed a Sunday because I was watching hockey.
Mm-hmm.
So it's repeating like a schedule. Like I'm bad with structure, but if I sit down and I can show you here. You know what I mean? Like my next blog, I write about you know top five songs of 1981.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I gotta
It's
highlight some of the important things that I know
mm-hmm.
people want to know about. Like I went ahead and I pretty much I did. So I'm doing music. Top five songs of every year since 1979. I'm also doing video games, but I'm also doing movies. Three things that I truly love.
You found what your passions are. And I think that's something too. When somebody can find what their passions are, then it's a lot easier to hold the interest of anybody.
Yeah,
If you know what you love, Another thing too, I can remember they were asking me whenever I was at community college, how are you with money? And I'm like, okay, I like to shop. So it's easy for me that it's always a surprise when to go to the register if you give me a credit card or a debit card. But if you give me $20, I can give a range of how much I can spend. It's never exact, but I can
Mhm.
see the dollars, I can see the quarters. And the counselor that was at the college said that's because you can see the relationship between math when you're at the store.
Right.
I can't do a problem when you ask me to figure out a percent, but
Right.
if you give me a visual with that, and a friend gave me a visual of quarters, and that's how I can do percents by just visualizing three quarters.
And that's something like I noticed one thing that I know one of
Mm-hmm.
your passions, besides you actually having married with two cats, which
Yes.
congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a big step too. What I mean, we'll talk about that in a
Right.
couple of minutes actually. But
Mm-hmm.
one of your passions is photography.
Yes.
And I know this is one of the pictures in the background that you took a picture of because actually it was going through your website and I know some of your pictures are unbelievably beautiful.
No. Actually, this is not a picture
Oh, okay.
that
It
I took
looked
myself. It was January and it was so dreary in Pennsylvania that I thought I wanted something to brighten it up. So I found a nice background. But I do take a lot of uh, photography is my passion. I do take a lot of pictures. I'm not
okay.
able to drive because of my disability.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be on a walk and it gives me that chance to pay attention to details. I'll be in the car with my husband and I'll say, "Did you see that?" Or he'll now ask me, "What are you seeing?" And I'll get a chance to see a flower, see a
Yeah.
sign, or see something else that's really neat. And sometimes if it's local and I don't have a ride somewhere, I get a chance to go back there, take a picture of a flower. And people will say, "You bring out details that I missed." And I get the chance to post them on my blog. And I get a chance to also write a lot about nature and
Mm-hmm.
metaphors with having a disability. And I have an online store where I sell my prints and some other
Yes.
things that I have. And I also feature them in art shows. And
Nice.
I could be really sad about not having a ride to get somewhere. And sometimes it is a convenience factor. But if I was driving, I would miss so much. I would miss that flower. I would miss that beautiful thing of nature. And I get a chance to capture that.
And that's something I love to hear because as a driver, yes, you miss some things, but also like I from playing football for so many years, I have like peripheral vision as a lineman. So
Mm-hmm.
if I'm able to see here, I'm able to see like all the way out here
Yeah,
with my finger is with it's holding a one. And
right.
over here I could tell you I just grabbed my probably my Chicago White Sox hat, which I did. So like not even looking, I was able to know where I was holding. But I always tell my wife too, it's attention to details. Like the
Yeah.
littlest things, like we take trips, like we went to Camelback um for with the kids for a weekend getaway. We went for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and came home Sunday morning. And it was great because we had a lot of fun with the kids. I
Mhm.
they had spring break and then my wife had the second week at spring break. So they didn't have spring break together. So it kind of worked out in our favor because when we went to Camelback, it
Mhm.
was quiet. And
Right.
I always have paid attention to these little details, like as I'm driving. Like if we come back home, I know there's a
Mhm.
Starbucks on Route 80, as we cross over from Pennsylvania to New Jersey. So if we're tired,
Mhm.
we can stop and grab a coffee. So I paid attention to these little things and so
Yeah,
how do you do that? I go, I just don't know. It's attention to a little bit of detail. And sometimes as I'm driving, I remember these things, you know,
yeah,
like
exactly.
like we'll go to
Yep.
Wildwood, like we go down the shore for Wildwood in the summer. I'm like, no, remember that one's closed. It's this one. And then, it, and she's amazed like how I do that. And I said, listen, I, I was born not by a book smart. I was born by street smarts. And like you said, you have a money, you were able to do fraction of the money. See, I tell people, you give me $1, I'll come back with 100. And
Yeah.
literally, I've done it. Where my dad
Mhm.
didn't believe me, he goes, "Here's $5. I want you to bring me back 50." I said, "Not a problem, Dad. Be back in 2 hours." $2,
Mhm.
2 hours later, I came back with $100.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
he goes, what did you bet on? I go, I didn't bet. I worked to get that hundred
Right.
dollars. I
Mm-hmm.
did something. I made a bet and I said I could do it, and I doubled my money. So
There you go.
here's your $5 back, and I keep 95. I'll see you later.
Yeah. Right, because you can think outside of the box and you know what you're getting into when you do something like that too. And yeah, exactly.
See, that's one thing outside the box. I didn't
Yeah.
learn that through my parents. It was always inside the box. It
Mm-hmm.
was, and I'm gonna say it as I consider him like a mentor and also a good friend. He was in my wedding and everything. It was my old boss, Tom. He goes, you gotta think outside the box. Here I
Yep.
am, like 30 something years old. I go, how the hell do I think outside the box? And then it just happened one day. And it just, I get it now. And he goes, now you're complete.
Yep. Exactly, because I can remember, especially when I was at a community college, I would get with some agencies with trying to place me at jobs.
Mhm.
And most of the people they placed at jobs had intellectual disabilities, which was great. They were helping them out. They definitely needed the services, but they wanted me to fit into the box of somebody that had an intellectual disability. And that just was not who I was. And I can remember one of the activities was circle jobs you're interested in.
Oh
And I
no.
thought I can do that at home.
Yeah.
and and
Why
then
am
they
I
would
gonna
want me to come for meetings and I would be working temp jobs. And it wasn't until I got to university that I had a professor that said, we're really surprised that they tried doing that with you because they said they're usually definitely don't fit into that little box that they're trying to put you in.
and that's something I always hate. They always judge you before
Hmm.
they know you.
Yep,
And
exactly.
and like me, like I know you always probably, like you say, you got bullied. So did I, even
Yeah,
in high school.
definitely. Hmm.
First of all, in high school, I used to do play. A drama club. Don't
Hmm.
ask me how I memorized the lines. I don't know how I did it, but I did it. You
I
know,
did. Yeah, that's awesome. I did not in high school, but out of high school, I've done a couple different plays, and
yeah.
yeah, and I could memorize a lot of lines, but there was always like one or two that I would get tripped up
Oh,
over, and yeah, but
I
for
had a brain for I was in Guys and Dolls. I was Big Jewel.
okay,
And I remember, and I went, and I didn't realize the mics were on. And I said, whispering, I go, oh, shit, what's my line? And
oh
everyone's mouth dropped in the back. I'm like, oh, they must have heard me. And like, it's just, oh yes. And this is he's Cicero, you know what I mean? Like, just totally
right,
brain farted. Like I knew the lines, but I just brain farted it for the second. And I go, thank God it was, unfortunately, it was with younger kids. And um it was at that point where I lived, it was a center for old folks that came in and watched, do our dry runs. And I was like, oh good Lord, but like no one really heard it, only us in the background. The mic grabbed it. I'm like, oh
right,
God.
yeah,
But you
I
should
can
have a major
remember,
brain fart.
yeah, I did well with that because I had two roles, but I did well with the lines, and then I got a bigger one. And luckily, the people on stage could figure out when I looked at them, and everything got quiet. Oh, she forgot that, so they did a distraction,
Yeah.
and my lines came back to me after that point.
Right.
And the only one that knew were my other cast members that
Mates,
I was in
yeah.
the play with, and the director. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And he's like, it happens. You just have, yeah, it happens. And
It does happen. I mean, the other people were,
yeah, we just go with it. And when you're up there, you just have to go with whatever it is. And you just, and I think that's a lot of what my life has been with having a disability. I've had to go with it, making a mistake, we went with it. And I did do a little bit of acting in college. And the really interesting thing was because I had to fill up one of my blocks with a creative course. And I chose fundamentals of acting because I thought, okay, I'm never really going to have the opportunity that I do now in the time.
right.
That was the only class I got an A in that I did not have to use disabilities accommodations and services.
Oh my
All my
God,
other
that's
courses, we had like the plans that if you're going to take a test, you're going to have extended test time, you're going to have a note taker, you need to have all
you're gonna
this
have
stuff.
all that stuff.
And none of that was going to really help me in my acting class. You just had to act, and I did well with it.
And that's something for me
Mm-hmm.
to say to you, that's amazing because
Yeah.
I had to use my language, not the playbook. I say playbook, not the actual word. So I changed a few things to fit me.
Right.
And I went to the casting director. I said, "Listen, Mr. C, who is also my teacher too, in
Uh-huh.
sound technology. So we're learning about radio, TV, and stuff like that. And that's what got me interested of going
Mm-hmm.
into being a director of movies. But my grades were not there, and NYU did not accept me, neither did UCLA. So, and my football career was over. So I did the next best thing. Now, 20 some odd, 25 years later, I'm podcasting. So that's the best thing for me.
You get that chance. Yeah, I know. And it's still having that chance to go out and speak. And yeah, exactly.
For me, it's an amazing thing because actually I was on a radio station
Mm-hmm.
slash Instagram live. And they said that they love what I do because I'm hustling. I'm
Mm-hmm.
a hustler to get work done. Like, it's not easy. The rejection of no is not in my vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
It's yes. So I've been rejected by some big name actors, which, hey, listen, I get it. I'm a
Yeah.
nobody, but it doesn't hurt to take a chance. Um,
Yep. What's the worst thing they're going to tell you? No, and maybe
no,
just some that's not the opportunity for you. And yeah.
and then whenever any kind of details I can get,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going with it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to get an NFL superstar who's retired on the show. I'm trying to get an NHLer retired superstar to come on the show. It
Awesome.
that would be so, to me, I feel like with that I made it. But people who only heard of the show or see me a few times or talk to me a couple of times, they're just telling me I'm pure hustling, that I'm getting the work. I hustle for the job. I hustle for emails. I'm doing whatever I can to make sure not my clients, but my guests are happy. You know what I
Right.
mean? I hope you're
Yep.
having fun with here. You know what I mean?
Oh, I am definitely. No,
Because,
I definitely am.
and
Yeah.
this is something, it's, I'm improv. I don't write questions down. I don't, you know, from looking at the website, doing this and doing that, I remember these little odds and ends. Now, you're married too, on top of that.
I am. I'm
How,
married.
and now, if you don't mind me, how long have you been married now?
It will be 9 years in June that we've been married.
Okay, I'm
And
actually 10
I
in
met my
July.
husband. It was totally unexpected.
Okay.
I can just, I was volunteering at an art center, and he saw me walking down the street, and I had a red dress on. He said, "Oh, who's that girl? Where's she going?" And it turns out we were going to the same place, and we had mutual friends, and he was going to play guitar that night. And all that summer we got to know each other. And he was a prayer that God answered, because I had some relationships with some guys that just weren't working out. Some of them didn't want to be with someone that had a disability. I can
Hmm.
remember one guy, my ex, breaking up with me saying, "Oh, I think you could drive if you wanted to, and I'm tired of taking you places." And there was just
Excuse my
so many
language.
bad relationships. And I finally just prayed. I said, "God, do not send anybody to me until it's the right person." And God answered my prayer. And he also just, there was so much confirmation with that too. I had a friend from a church I was going to called me up and said, "I had this dream. You got married. I don't know who the guy is. You had a vintage wedding dress and you're standing in front of the courthouse." Well, the vintage dress, I would probably give him that because that's my style. And but I thought, the courthouse, why would I be standing in front of the courthouse? And I we had our wedding reception at the art center where we met at.
Okay.
And I didn't think about it, but the photographer had us go take some pictures, and we went to a park, and we got the pictures back. That park had the courthouse in the back, and I had the vintage dress on. And the art center where we met at was also special too. I had another friend that asked me years before that, "Are you seeing anybody?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "I think you're going to meet somebody maybe in a place like this." And that is the exact same spot I met him at.
I actually met my wife through Match.
Okay, awesome.
So, um, like you, string of bad luck with
Yeah.
girls. Um, it's always, oh, it's not you, it's me, or it's, oh, we're better off friends. I'm just like so tired. I actually gave up for a long time. I didn't get married till in my late 30s.
Yeah, same
Um,
here.
so my friend goes, "Why don't you try Match?" I said,
Hmm.
"Oh God, really? I gotta pay for this crap?" I was not happy. I was like, "Fine, I'll do it." And I did plenty of fish for a while too. Been on
Hmm.
plenty of dates, a lot of hookups, but nothing like
Right.
absorbed. And I wasn't looking for one night standers either. You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
getting, listen, 21 to 25, 26. When you're hitting the bar scenes, yeah, fine with that. But
Yeah.
when you're
Yeah.
getting into a certain age, you're starting to realize everyone's getting married. Everyone has their kids. Everyone has the family. And here I am, the single guy, going to the bar every night. I stopped going to the bar around 27, 28 years old. Like I was drinking, partying hard,
Right.
and it just came down to I went on Match. This girl winked at me, and I just, hey, what's up? And here I am, 10 years in marriage, 12 years together, and it's been the most uncanny thing because I never thought it would happen. I I really thought I was going to be alone for the rest of my life. Really wasn't looking either. She wasn't looking either, but we were both at the same time, like we took a chance, and then here we are.
I love, yep, that's I think it works out better because if you get that, you're not really looking necessarily for a relationship or the
Yeah.
perfect person that checks off all the boxes. And you get that chance to be friends. I think that's the big thing.
Well,
All yeah.
yeah, it is. And I remember we met in September. By
Hmm.
December, we were already in the relationship, and she asked that important question: How far are we taking this? I
Hmm.
don't know. Maybe there could be marriage. I don't. I can't predict the future. And it was one of those questions. I'm like, I don't know how to answer that one. I don't
Right.
know. I said I would
Hmm.
love marriage to be I would love marriage to be on the menu. And
Right.
then lo and behold, probably February, so 6 months into my relationship with her, I started looking for an engagement ring. I just
That's awesome.
I just knew.
Great.
So it was either Mercedes Benz or her. So I guess I chose correctly. I chose
Yes,
her.
exact.
I
Yep.
chose her, not the Mercedes. It was kind of funny. We went car shopping for her, and she goes, "I want a Mercedes." I go, "We'll trade in your ring for the Mercedes then."
Oh boy, yeah. She chose the ring.
So it was kind of
Wise
funny.
choice.
She was like, she went with the Volkswagen right after that. So, but
Right.
it's an amazing thing, like what you have been through and the bullying,
Hmm.
the string of, listen, I've been bullied too. Ever since I got left back in grammar school. So it was
Yep.
just not in high school too. Even though I was a football player, I was in the drama
Wow.
club. I did this, I did that. Everyone liked me, but you still get bullied by some people,
Yep.
because you're successful. And one thing I've learned,
Hmm.
the reason people bully, now I was a bully, I got bullied and I became a bullier.
Hmm.
So
Because that's what happens.
it
Yeah.
does happen. And one thing I learned as I got older, and I'll say this out loud, is the reason I started bullying people because I wasn't getting success, and then the guys who were getting success, I was bullying them. And that's
Mm.
something that I got, I guess you could say, jealous.
Right. Yeah.
And I wanted that success. And
Yeah.
my thought thinking changed dramatically. Like, I can't think like that. You were just in that situation. What
Right.
what were you thinking?
Yeah, exactly. I can remember, I think I definitely had a lot of that maturity early on,
Mhm.
but I can remember maybe like in middle school, maybe start, my biggest problem was I opened my mouth sometimes, and yes, I would maybe bully somebody.
Yeah.
And then I got to that point, I'm like, this is ridiculous. I don't want to be, I don't like it when other people treat me that way. And it certainly was not making me popular. And I kind of, by the time I was in high school, like I really don't want to bully anybody. And I really made an effort not to do that. And I think that's when it was really frustrating too, because I wasn't getting that connection with people that I went to school with. And that really encouraged me, though, to reach outside of my community. And I found a writing group that was with some students my age that were
Hmm.
just right outside of our school district. And I could shed that reputation. And I really only had problems maybe with one or two people out of anybody. And
Right.
that was solved very quickly with some of the adults that were involved. It was a great group,
Right.
but eventually I started to grow up, and I also found a writing group in my late teen years once I was done with that.
Nice.
And we met and we wrote, and they always encouraged me to write about having a learning disability. And there was a time I didn't want to write about that because I was ashamed, and I thought, oh, I just want to pretend like it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And to this, and we still meet this group 30 some years later every weekend, every once a month.
Nice.
We have a meeting where we talk about that, and we're in each other's lives with birthday parties and
Hmm.
vacations. We were with weddings and funerals and just life, the things that you just have that with. And they got to see me not only grow as a writer, but as a person as well.
And that's
And
amazing.
yeah, there was those years. I can remember it was hard, especially when I was single. And like you said, you're jealous because you're going to a lot of these events, and
Hmm.
you want uh, to be married. You want to have all those things, and of course, you got somebody that would say, "Hey, when are you going to get married?" And
Those questions popped up for many
yeah.
years.
And what I had to learn how to do was I had to learn to say good for that person. I
Hmm.
wish you all the happiness in the world.
Yeah, I did
And
too.
to also know that this is going to be hard for me, and to be sad too, and it was okay to feel that way, but also not to go and be jealous and to say, oh, I hope this doesn't work out for you, but to really experience that. And this, a lot of those people that I went to their showers before they got married, and whenever it was my turn, they're the ones that threw me a beautiful bridal shower. And it came forward because
Hmm.
I was able to be encouraging, and just be happy that that happened for them at that time.
For me, it's kind of funny because it's the same thing. Like for a bachelor party, I wanted it low key. I didn't want the overnight party at a hotel down in Atlantic
Right.
City or go to Vegas either or
Yeah.
Montreal. I told my best men, simple dinner, play pool, go to the racetrack, catch a
Right.
game. We ended up eating dinner. We ended up going to the racetrack, and my buddy picked. Everyone chipped in $5. I didn't because it was my, so everybody chipped in a
Yeah.
few more than $5. And my buddy picks a three mule of horses to win in a trifecta, first, second, and
Goodness.
third. Talk about being hit with lucky horse poo because we hit all three and we won money. And my buddy's dad is a veteran, so they don't get charged
Hmm.
taxes. So we said, "You go get us the money," and then we gave him a little chunk too. But everybody took their whatever it was, and everyone gave the rest to me for my honeymoon, which I
Awesome.
wasn't expecting that. I go, guys, seriously.
Right.
It's like, no, 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 man. This is, we're so thrilled for you. And, and my wife had an
Hmm.
incredible shower too. And it's funny because I was, like you said, in weddings, I think I was a guest in two weddings, and I was in the weddings for the rest. So I'm in the line with best men and stuff, and I'm like, oh my God. So what I remember the last one was like, dude, do you plan to get married? I go, I have no clue. I said, I don't know if I'm ever getting married. You know what I mean? Like, look, can we just talk about this and let's get drunk later? Gotcha. Yeah, I just didn't. I'm more happy when we're drunk and dancing like an idiot and doing whatever you do, whatever you could do. But I've been lucky, I'm blessed, and I'm thankful every
Yes.
day because without my wife pushing me to be where I'm at today is one thing. You know what I mean? I
Hmm.
struggled with a lot of things. I struggled with a little bit of alcoholism too because
Right.
I used to drink
Hmm.
big time Jack Daniels. So when I moved out of my mom's house finally around 30, 31, I think. And what it was is when my dad died, I stayed home to help.
Hmm.
And, it was me, my mom, my uncle, and there was just time I just said, I'm done. I can't live here anymore. I got to do things on my own. You know,
Right.
come and go as I please, go to work on time, be kind of responsible. And the first thing I did, I remember when I got my apartment, I went to BJ's and I'm like, oh, they have a liquor section. And they had the big bottle of Jack Daniels, like I think it was like this big.
Oh my goodness.
And I said, yep, there's my big gift for me for the apartment. Took one of those bottles. I think it only lasted a week, because I was drinking. I was at that point like, is anything good gonna happen? I was at that time. I was talking to my wife. We were dating a little bit, but not.
Hmm.
We weren't serious at that point. And it was a difficult thing. And
Right.
he told me you got to choose something. It's either me or the booze.
Yep.
I said, okay. I guess the booze goes bye bye. I mean, now I barely drink. If I do, I drink socially, maybe a couple of drinks here and there. But
And that's, yeah, exactly.
and as you get older, you realize things, and when you start realizing things you've done in your past, and you hear stories like
Hmm.
fudge, you're like, no, no, no,
No, don't
no.
want to go down that road.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So, now the good thing is things are good, everyone's happy, and just like you're happy, you love what you're doing. You're
Hmm.
spreading the help and the love for other kids who have disabilities too. And that's an amazing feat for you too. Like for me, that's you did it. You're on top of the world, and
Yep.
people don't realize that. And that's where I got to give you a lot of kudos. I know your husband's got to be very proud of you.
At all.
Um,
Yes.
he's very lucky to have you.
Oh, thank
And,
you.
just like my wife, I'm lucky to have her.
She, and she's lucky to have you. Yes.
And thank you very much. And I'm lucky to have the two kids that I have too. Um,
Yes.
but I can't say enough good stuff for you, Michelle, because you've done it, you lived it, and you're doing it. And to see that is a huge, amazing accomplishment on what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
I mean,
I appreciate that.
no, you're welcome. I appreciate telling you because it's the truth, and people have got to realize that too. You know what I mean? So, it's amazing thing what you're doing with your blogs, teaching the kids. It's amazing feat what you're doing. I'm to say that proud of you that what you're doing is amazing work too. I got to read some of your blogs too. Um, to get to know who you are, and
Hmm.
you have amazing. Your writing is amazing.
Thank you.
So, I definitely vouch on the writing and vouch on everything that you're doing because you're doing it.
Hmm.
And
Thank you.
we're getting close to that time right now, and I gotta say is this, I can't thank you enough, Michelle, for coming on and sharing your story here because people need to know that put your mind to it, you can get it done.
Yes, exactly.
And
Hmm.
that's something you've done. And meeting you for the first time and saying how proud I am of the accomplishments that you've done is an amazing thing. Before we sign off, let's let everybody know where they could actually find you and everything too. And
Sure. You can find me on my blog, michellesmission.net.
Perfect. Michelle, thank you so much again for coming on. It's an amazing thing that you're doing, and we're going to keep pushing forward for other kids too. So, guys, I always say this at the end: dreams do come true. You set a goal, let's get it done. It's the best way of doing it. And I thank Michelle coming on the show tonight. Thank you for coming, and I really appreciate your time tonight. And as I always end my show, it's nothing but love, peace, and happiness. Good night, everybody.